Remember Deagle from The Lord of the Rings? You know, the guy who gives the best birthday presents? Well, I heard that one of these gifts was a ring, which apparently grants invisibility, dominates the will of the world, amplifies power, extends your lifespan, and reveals alternative dimensions. Little stuff like that. Apparently it becomes relevant somewhere near the end of the book and being destroyed in a mountain. Seems a little overkill, but hey, if Frodo wants the exercise, that's his choice. What I'm concerned about is this shot right here, where the One Ring gets plucked from the riverbed. It marks a turning point in the destiny of Middle-earth and a backstory for everyone's favorite tragic anti-hero. And what better way to encapsulate this moment than a resin frozen in time with the One Ring awaiting its new bearer. I began by making a box for my resin cube, and here I had quite a bit of trouble cutting the acrylic without it snapping, and in the end I didn't have enough whole pieces to continue, so instead I utilized every resourceful gene I had in my body and used plywood squares, wrapped in packing tape as a substitute. I continued jury-rigging my box using enough hot glue to drown an olifant, which ended up getting literally everywhere and my fingers just couldn't stay out of it. But just to be extra safe, and since I didn't want my desk to look like the Dead Marsh's epoxy edition, I also smothered everything in Mod Podge, hoping that would do the trick. I wasn't taking any chances and ended up going a tad bit crazy. When I finished taking out years of frustration on this little epoxy mold, I let it dry overnight and got to work on decorating the interior the very next day. Luckily, I had plenty of resources for this and had time to experiment, and after some basic trial and error, I decided that the sand was a bit too yellow and ended up dyeing it brown. Kind of like if you pushed Gandalf off a bridge and he came out on the other side, well, not white. I also added some foam and hot glue within the sand for structure before adding some other little details, including the star of the show, the One Ring to rule them all.
One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, fight them.
Yep, that ring, which I had thanks to an earlier project, and after putting everything in position, I was ready for the epoxy, except for one thing, that is the moisture I introduced during all these steps. The cure was a 48-hour wait, and after 2 whole days of parching the precious, it was finally time to submerge it forever. This pour actually went very well with just 2 issues. First, I think I used too much dye. Second, I failed to remove all the micro bubbles, but we'll just chalk that up to Deagle stirring up the mud. And just like that, the resin cube cured in about 5 seconds, much like how Gandalf's absence in the Fellowship of the Ring feels like it lasted only through tea time when in reality it was 17 years. And in this time, I added some extra hot glue to prevent the small leak you can see here. Peeling away both the acrylic and taped plywood was surprisingly satisfying. The cube came out beautifully, with the base giving me the most trouble since that's where the epoxy leaked out and needed some extra cleanup.
Yes.
Now we move on to the final stage, where I almost cut my fingers off with a box knife, then sanded the diorama until it looked like a foggy ice cube, and after that, I coated all 6 sides with UV resin. The first side was a little tricky and took some time, but by the end my technique improved significantly and I was able to finish each side in about 60 seconds. And with the final exposure to light, Isildur's Bane was sealed for good. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and may your shadow never grow less.